Well, congratulations, all of you, for amazing and a film that stays with you and sort of percolates and carries on in the days and weeks afterwards, as I'm sure you'll all discover. There will be a chance for you to ask questions later, but if you'll allow me a few minutes, first of all. Yorgos, the idea of a triptych, I mean, it's quite almost like a 1950s, 1970s idea. We don't see them very often these days. So did you originally have in mind, a feature that was going to encompass a sort of a soul theme, or what was the idea of breaking it into three?
No, it was very, very gradual, actually. We started with Lanthimos writing the first story, and we thought that it was going to be just, a film with this story that we had in mind. But then, because the writing took a lot of time, took place over a long period, and we would go off and do other things, and then we would come back to it. At some point, when we came back, we went like, why don't we also try to do something different with form? And that's when we started thinking about making this more than one story. And then we just, made a list of other ideas that we had, and we just tried to think very instinctively which ones could be part of the same universe of the first story that we were writing. And then we just started, writing all three together. And actually, in the beginning, when we started writing the three stories, we kind of followed them in parallel in a more traditional, I guess, way of that kind of film. But then I kept having the idea of having the same actors play different characters in each story, and it would probably be, even more confusing if it was the same characters and you would just follow them in parallel. So we decided to separate the three stories and show them one after the other. And we just felt it was even stronger how they were structured this way. And then, we were able to do, to go ahead with that idea of having the same actors playing a different character in each story. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, not at all. I mean,
it took us 7 years to write the script, so you can hold it for 1 minute.
Emma and Jesse, in terms of the way that Yorgos presented it to you, were those characters in the three sections, were they related in any way? I mean, were they sort of or were you playing them in an entirely separate way?
I always want to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize there were.
Hello.
No.
Well, I guess, that's never really a discussion with him about that. So I think probably it was individual per actor how we felt about if our characters felt related or not. I felt that mine were. Earmuffs. I felt that mine were a little bit. I thought it was sort of a progression, at least for mine. How did you feel?
I had my thoughts when we were shooting, and then I had thoughts when I watched it that were a little different. Yes, there were these little threads, as you've just seen, where I remember getting hung up on, it's like, why is this character in this film saying this very similar thing that this other character is? I was trying to put the puzzle together and then stopped trying to do that, and I think, it was. I just sort of accepted the ride of it, accepted kind of the, everything I had done beforehand, and then watching the film, it occurred to me, or it felt like it was almost a reincarnation, or sort of multiple lives, or there was some thread, some sort of cycle where it's just starting over again. That feeling that you end on with Robert at the end, and then starting with Daniel. Something about that transition, watching it, was really effective in a really unusual way. That's hard to articulate, but there was some thread. But it's like words don't really don't really do
No,
it
no,
justice, you know?
And is that the way that people have been reacting? I mean, are they reacting to it in, well, I'm sure we'll hear as well, but in it, because it brings out a very, you find that you're reacting to it in a kind of instinctual way rather than a rational way. Is that?
I mean, I think that's the way it's written, and also the way it's directed. It all feels very instinctual and not, super based in logic or rationality. So I think trying to over-rationalize would be a mistake on this one, potentially.
I mean,
imagine.
Yeah.
You try.
Or to make a definitive, this is what it is,
Yeah.
is sort of counterintuitive and
But
defeats the whole purpose.
It does provoke lots of thoughts about domination and our desire to be dominated and our desire to find regimes or, religions or whatever it is or a person or an individual. And that's very strong as well.
Yes,
And is that where you started?
definitely. Kind of, yeah. I guess like when we started writing the first story, one of my main inspirations was having just read Caligula by Camus, and just started thinking about the power that one person can have over many people. Then I started imagining what would that mean in a contemporary society, and then even more so in a very intimate level with just an interpersonal relationships. So that sparked definitely the first story. And I guess when we did that list of other ideas, we felt it was instinctive, but I guess it's being uncovered right now by other people that there are these thematic consistencies between the stories. But I think the reason why I have more than one story is that there's all these other things, and then hopefully they're structured in a way that according to how different you are and unique as a person, then you start identifying more one thing in one story, another in another one, and then different people see it differently and have their own perception about it. And obviously that's very deliberate, the fact that it's structured in a more open way so that you can engage more actively and have to make your decisions in order to follow the rest of the story. You have to kind of say, okay, or just to be open to receiving the stories without understanding them completely, and then be able to work with them in your head. Or after having finished the first story, it kind of lingers in your head while you're watching the second one, and then you make connections. But it's also, and that's what I'm interested in, it's so much up to the individual if you structure it that way, and that's what's interesting to me. Otherwise, it just makes something which is so concrete and say this one specific thing, but I'm not really interested in doing that.
Which we did a Q&A a little earlier where there was someone that asked us, like, please tell me, was Daniel crazy or not? And the fact that that was what she needed to know. That's what's been really interesting about this, is what people really latch onto, and what they take away, what they really need an answer to, or what they get hung up on, excited about.
But I mean, that's a very contemporary thing as well, isn't it? People need to know what is the right answer to anything, and in a sense, that's a symptom of the same kind of thing, if you like, that you're depicting here. Is that people want that kind of certainty, and that's not something maybe film should give them.
Yeah, like for example, to me, not to say that anyone's questions or thoughts are not valid or anything, but
that wasn't my point, by the way. I was just saying it's interesting.
Yeah, no, but to me that's not the important part of this story. You don't watch that story to know if he's crazy or if she's crazy or if it's two of them or whatever. You watch the thing because there's so many things that are happening between them, and so many desires and so many different kind of behaviors, and you know, they break so many barriers or not, or, you know, like there's so many things going on. And it's not about, oh, is he crazy or is she? It's just about, you know, following the journey and, you know, getting into that kind of mindset where you go like, you put yourself in their shoes and you think how you'd react, and, or, you know, what it is that makes them behave that way. It's all that interaction instead of what the outcome of its story is, and, you know, so that's why it's deliberately more open in that way, and you don't have a definite answer, because then it would kind of take away the rest of it. Sorry?
Stupid joke. He said kind of and then had a pause, and I said kindness.
See, it's very funny, you have to know.
But I mean, it is funny. That's the other thing. The film is funny. And is that humor? Is it right there in the script? Is it some things that also emerge when you're filming it?
I mean, I definitely think it's in there, but of all the people in the movie, Jesse makes me laugh the most just by line delivery. It's like the lines are in there, but the way that he did them are so funny. Like that's so many of his lines stick out to me because of how he did them. But yeah, I mean, there's humor infused, I think, into every script that Yorgos does. Like, I don't think he's ever made a dyed-in-the-wool drama. Have you?
Not yet, I think. No.
Not yet. Do you want to? Oh, God.
It would be so dramatic, though, that it'd still be funny.
True. Yeah.
To us, at
But
least.
but it was, yes, it was very funny in, you know, the most twisted way possible.
I mean, not least, of course, the amazing Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yes.
Leisure wear, of course. Which
His
is
Speedo is...
Yeah.
And also that wide shot when it cuts to him and he's got those socks and his shorts. I love that shot alone just gets a laugh because of what he's wearing. It's incredible.
But it's important too, isn't it, the humor?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know how we would do anything despite having said that I would just do a very dramatic film. So dramatic it's funny. That's the thing. Like, I think that's the point. Like, it would have to be so dramatic that it's funny. Like, sometimes I think I try to use, you know, some of the elements even, you know, that way, even if a scene is, you know, darker or dramatic within, you know, this film that has other, you know, instances of humor or whatever. I might use music in such a dramatic way that ends up being funny, for example, or you know, it's just how you use all of the elements at your disposal to find that humor in any kind of circumstance and situation.
And does it get harder as audiences get so, or are so used to certain kind of, you know, tropes and genres in film? Does it get harder to get the kind of reaction or to surprise them in that way?
I mean, I'm not there to witness it most of the time, so I don't really know. I guess we don't really have that in mind when we're, you know, making the films. It's just like you can only go by your own instincts and, you know, your own perception about, you know, what the balance of every element is and how you feel about it.
I think it's also important to say, because this is not typical in America, which is a little crazy, but you know, Yorgos has a very specific way that he will make films that includes final cut and major creative control. So when it comes to the way the films are made and what he's able to do, he won't make a film without that. So as much as the audience is a part of it in the response, I think what he makes, or at least the films that he has made thus far, I mean, I don't see that changing anytime soon. You being like, you go cut it, big studio. Tell me what you think. But, you know, the script is approved. The cut is his. And so he does have that ability to walk away going, this is what I wanted to make, you know, no matter how the audiences respond to it, which is shockingly not in Europe, or, I mean, it's Brexit now, so this isn't
Sadly
Europe,
not.
but maybe not in the UK either. Typically, it is a director's medium film, and that's a fight in the States when he's making films there, or when many directors are making films there. So I just wanted to add that to it. I think that's a cool aspect that you're hanging on to that.
I think when we're in cinemas, then we are European in Britain. You know, we revert to being European. That's what we like to think. Can we talk about sex? Sex is pretty transactional. It's pretty transactional in this film. It's either something you do as part of your job, or it's like a competitive sport, or it's a religious rite. I mean, there's not much fun in it. I mean, it's also very funny, of course, in that. Is that right?
I think they're having fun, I think.
There was that one scene, like the best times of their lives. Those were the good old days.
No, those were the good. Yeah, although maybe.
Reminiscent.
Well, not all of them thought that. Maybe
Even the cat enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yes, you're probably right about the other aspects. Yorgos, you want to say anything about that?
Well, I guess that's partly true, except that scene that they had an amazing time. Because I guess it has a certain function within the stories, and I fail to see maybe the point of showing like loving sex in those kind of stories. There's so many other conflicts going on, and everything plays like a different part. Like it's just is consistent with all the conflicts that are happening within the story. So otherwise it would be ornamental in a way, and it wouldn't serve any purpose. So I guess when it is that way, it is because of that, I guess, not because of a general idea about sex, or the same way like nothing that we have in there is a general specific viewpoint about anything specific.
What?
I don't know. I even lost.
We're gonna
that.
take him to the hospital, but we'll be back.
I guess maybe what I was thinking was it the fact that it was clearly seemed so sort of it seemed like a job that he had to do. That in a sense was it that it had become, or the achievement of sex in one form or another had become a kind of tyranny as well. That was it. Anyway,
You made much more sense than I did.
I'm not sure about that. Why don't we bring you in if there are some roving microphones and there's some hands.
Go.
Well, yeah. No, he said as a director and actor.
Oh,
He did say.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
opened
got
it
this
up.
when you were going.
That's what I thought was happening. As the writer and director, you're like, oh, I got this. Sorry. We're all very tired if you can't tell.
Well, yes. You know.
That's your answer?
If you let me finish. Obviously, you know, anything you read, there's a human instinct to try and understand and to try and make sense of why you just felt what you felt, you know, what just happened to me. And so in reading that, knowing you're going to play these three parts, yes, you pick up on themes, but you can't really play themes. And so there's a period of time beforehand where, you know, you're personalizing it in some way, and then, you know, knowing somewhat what what Yorgos's approach to shooting was like after talking to some people, doing some investigating, you know, and then showing up and going through some of the rehearsal process. It's this balance of yeah, not getting too locked in into needing to know, but then still not showing up just like, what's happening, you know, and hoping for some instinct to just kick in. So it's like, yeah, it's sort of digging around, but then not, you know, sort of boxing yourself into anything that was my experience, you know.
Yeah. Should I answer too?
I don't know, if you had it.
I mean, he doesn't explain, you know, anything, and it's all very, like, you kind of figure it out and feel it out. I think that you do have a perspective, obviously, on all of these themes. Otherwise, why would you be making these films? Like, what would be the point? But I do think you kind of underplay that when we talk about things publicly because, A, it's embarrassing for directors to tell you what you're supposed to feel about their movies, and we all know that. Or at least that's my opinion. When they're like, didn't you see that this was the theme? And you're like, oh, no, sorry. Or like, yes, we did, we get it. But secondly, I think also, and this has become very interesting to me too, having worked with him multiple times, a lot of it has to do with what you bring to it, like what your own background or your own experience brings to the story and how that shifts and changes things. And it's like that for us as actors. Like, his style of directing is not prescriptive. He very much becomes like an audience member on set and goes by instinct and lets you do what you're gonna do and just goes like, maybe this part is a little, but it's not over-directed. It's not, you're not told how to make it work to fit either what he's written or, you know, the script that he's directing. So I don't know, I think it's similar when it comes to the themes emerging. They emerge for us, they emerge for you guys, and I think he does know underneath it all on a subterranean level, but doesn't really want to talk about it because it's, you know, embarrassing. That's my opinion. Am I wrong? We've never actually talked about that. Am I wrong?
Well, we're talking about it publicly.
Yeah,
so.
but like, why not?
Yeah,
this
sure.
is like therapy.
Look, listen, partly you're right, but also I do honestly think that what I think about the film or what the themes are, whatever, it's also very limited. Like I'm so much in it and have created it and through instinct or whatever, or some kind of logic, but you know, there's all these other things that people observe about someone's work that are so valid and so true that I could have never thought of. So me coming here and saying, no, this is what the theme is, and this is, it goes against to how I construct the films. It's not just, you know, not wanting to talk about it. It's just like, allow that kind of freedom that, yeah, I mean, it is, you know, you said control most of all. I might say love most of all, and how that makes it, like, it might be more prominent to me that than that, but, you know, that doesn't say that it's not valid, or more valid probably, and, you know, whatever anyone else thinks is probably more valid than what I think, because it's, you know, my perspective is so, you know, limited. So it's really an honest kind of position, you know, like it's, you take it, you can do, you know.
But it's also like a little embarrassing.
Okay, it's a little embarrassing too.
That wound up being a really meaty question there.
Yeah. Did that
Well done.
answer your question at all?
Hardly.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
Which is, it's exactly what we're talking about, to be serious about it. It's exactly what we're talking about. Like, I never thought about to make all these kind of connections. There's so many things that, again, I'll say that boring thing instinctively. And I might have a thing about hands. I love how people express themselves through hands, so I do that. I love Bresson, so he was like a lot about hands and feet and things, and how he, saw a whole story through that. And, then you come in and make the connection with, some part of the story that I never made the connection of. And so it's just all valid and, beautiful observations about, when you create something and you just give it to the people and, they just do either beautiful or horrible things with it, whatever. It's just all part of it.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't pitch the idea of the dance or that specific song. I did the dance, and then he thought that would be a fun dance in Kinds of Kindness, and then we listened to a bunch of songs, and that's the one that we settled on, Brand New Bitch, which was a phenomenal song. And that's, how that kind of came to be. But when it comes to music and characters, it's like it's one of my favorite things privately to do before I start doing something. I'll make a playlist and it'll just be my music for that. But I also always have hype up music. And typically, right around the time I'm doing something, someone seems to come out with an album that gets me through the car ride to work in the morning, that wakes me up. And it has nothing to do with the movie ever, typically. And it's just like great pop music. And so there's always a different one for everything. That's something that comes out, and I'm just listening to like top 40, an album from an artist.
Do you have recommendations? I want to know. I'm so curious.
What I'm listening to right now? My hype up music?
Okay.
Chapel Roan. Come on.
Oh my God, love her. Yes.
Like constantly, nonstop. I can't stop. So I'm just listening to a ton of Chapel Roan right now on my way to rehearsals. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all Jerskin. We work in a, I guess, not so typical way. I give him the script usually. Actually, we're making a film now that I haven't shared the script with him, and he's already composed half of the music. But the two films that we made together, Poor Things and this one, I did give him the script, and I give him some visuals sometimes. Maybe I send him pictures from set, or he visits sometimes. but he composes the entirety of the score before he watches even one frame of the film. And that's the only way that I've found that I'm able to work with a composer, because when they, my experience is that when they do watch the film and they try to write music, you know, for specific scenes, it just becomes very descriptive and kind of narrows the scenes and the entirety of the film, and it just becomes like this very one specific thing. So we came up with this plan with Jerskin from the first time that we worked together, that we'd just create the music before, and then I'd have that music to edit with. So then I edit the music on the scenes, and I have to cut it roughly sometimes, and then he makes it again good, but everything is composed, you know, beforehand. And, you know, this is no exception to that. And, you know, what we decided in the beginning of this, for example, was like, okay, we want to do something different to Poor Things. Let's limit ourselves in a way. And so we decided to use piano and choir. And that's what he started to work on. And then the script, and then I would send him, you know, just black and white pictures from set, for example. And then, you know, he visited, he's been in both films. He's the guy playing the piano in the bar, and in Poor Things, he's playing this weird instrument. So we decided to take that even further on the new film that we're making, and I gave him only 4 keywords, and he's already composed half of the score.
He's
with
a
that.
genius.
Yeah, he's incredible. And he still hasn't read the script, and he's actually so, you know, he wants to be so correct about it. Like, he doesn't want to speak to people that know anything about the film, and he goes like, "Don't speak to me about the film. I only know these 4 words." And you're like, okay.
Well, look, thank you for that question. Thank you for all your questions. We are out of time. Yorgos, Emma, and Jesse, thank you very much. Can I ask you all, just before you give them a very deserved round of applause, to stay in your seats until they've cleared the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.